Welcome back to Close Up. She's one of several U.S. senators in the conversation for the 2020 race, a no-nonsense New Yorker who has been on the forefront of opposition to President Donald Trump. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand joins us this morning. Thanks for being here, Senator.
Lovely to be on your show.
So President Trump is going to declare a national emergency over the border, and it looks like Congress will probably sue the president over this and take him to court. How broken is the American system right now when, to make policy, you have Congress, the legislative branch and the executive branch basically going to court over this? And how do you end that dysfunction if you become president?
Well, Washington is broken, and it's broken because moneyed interests, the powerful, the elite control everything. And President Trump, unfortunately, has only made it worse. And that's the kind of corruption that I want to end. We actually have to restore democracy to the people. We need a direct democracy. We need to get money out of politics. That's why I'm banning corporate PAC money and federal lobbyist money and not having an individual super PAC. And so if you want to restore that democracy to the hands of the people, you've got to change who's in charge. What President Trump is doing in declaring a national emergency is reckless. It is not the appropriate use of a national emergency. There are real national emergencies. There are times when we have to come together as a country and people have to help one another. We've seen it with wildfires in California. We've seen it in flooding. We've seen it with hurricanes across the country. And those are national emergencies. What's happening at the border is something that President Trump is not only calling an emergency falsely, but frightening people. When I'm traveling around your state and talk to folks about their concerns, when they say, I'm worried about the border and I'm worried about terrorists and criminals, that's a fear that President Trump has created. I visited the border. There are children, there are parents, there are families suffering, just literally afraid for their lives, coming from countries where there are gangs, where there is massive instability, and they're seeking asylum. And our country's always believed that we are the beacon of light and hope. Immigration has always been a strength. It's never been a weakness. We've never been afraid of immigrants, and we've never been afraid of refugees in the way that President Trump has created. So, to your question, this shutdown and this debate, Congress came together. They found a common sense solution to actually invest in border security. I had grave concerns with the bill because it didn't put a cap on where President Trump could spend this money. And so what he's doing when these families come across, he's actually putting them, locking them up in for-profit prisons. Companies are running these for-profit prison companies are running these facilities. One facility for young boys on the border, it's in an abandoned Walmart. That's not an appropriate place for unaccompanied minors to be housed. They're here for help and support. And so what he's going to do in his emergency is just keep sending money to these for-profit prisons to run these detention centers and run these facilities that are holding people who just are seeking our help. So to change that, to your question, we need to tell the American people what's actually happening.
You used to have different views on immigration. You used to have different views on guns. You were a blue dog Democrat when you were in Congress. How have your views evolved, particularly on firearms? And what restrictions would you approve or sign as president to prevent gun violence?
Well, in my first run for office in upstate New York, it was a 2-to-1 Republican congressional district, quite rural, small towns, small cities, but a lot of rural areas. And from that perspective, hunting was part of the culture and the heritage of the region, and we didn't suffer a lot of gun violence. When I became senator 10 years ago, I recognized that gun violence pervades our state, all across the state, whether it's in Brooklyn, whether it's in the Bronx, whether it's in Buffalo, and we have gang violence, serious gang violence. But I met families who suffered from gun violence. When I went to meet with a family in Brooklyn, a husband and wife who lost their teenage daughter to a stray bullet that killed her while she was at a party with her friends. I met all her friends from her class. And to look those parents in the eye and not say, I will do something to make sure this doesn't happen to someone else, you're not doing your job. So I recognized immediately I had to care not only about ending gun violence, but taking on the NRA, because the NRA is corrupted. It is driven by greed. It is largely funded by the gun manufacturers who only care about gun sales, and they truly do. They want to sell assault rifles to teenagers in a Walmart. They want to sell weapons to terrorists on the watch list. They want to sell weapons to people who are so mentally ill or have a violent background or have a criminal record for violence because they're unwilling to have a universal background check. So I support universal background checks. No one should have access to a gun who is not, it would not be safe to be in their hands. We need to ban ban the bump stocks. We need to ban the large magazines and the military-style assault weapons. We also need an anti-federal trafficking law, because a lot of the guns that come from states, I don't know whether New Hampshire struggles from the same issue, but a lot of guns come from states that have no gun reform rules, and they get sold directly to criminals. And so you have to create a law to crack down on that. And I've written that bill, and I got, the last time I brought it to Congress, we got 58 of the 60 votes we needed. So hopefully the next time we get a vote on that, we will pass it.
Democrats like to claim the high ground in the Me Too movement. I'm personally surprised by the number of them that I hear from who are still upset with you over taking a stand against Al Franken when accusations were brought against him. What do you say to those Democrats, particularly here in New Hampshire, who still feel that, quote unquote, you threw him under the bus on that?
Yeah, I mean, many people are very sad because they miss Senator Franken, but the truth is he had 8 credible allegations against him that were corroborated by the media in real time, many of the corroborations at the time they happened. 2 of those allegations were since he was in the Senate, and the last allegation happened to be from a congressional staffer. And I could not remain silent any longer as a woman who has led a lot of these issues for the past 7 years on ending sexual violence, sexual harassment, and valuing women, whether I'm leading the National Paid Leave Bill, whether I'm leading equal pay for equal work, affordable daycare, universal pre-K, ending sexual assault on college campuses, ending sexual assault in the military, changing the sexual harassment rules right now in Congress with Senator Cruz. These are things I'm working on a bipartisan basis for years. And I could not be silent. And so I just had to say enough was enough. It's not okay. And I couldn't stand by him. His decision is to do, he could have stayed for 6 months and gone through his ethics committee. He could have sued every woman who made an allegation against him. Those are his decisions. My decision was whether to be silent. And as a mom, I have 2 young boys. I have a 15-year-old named Theo. I have a 10-year-old named Henry. And the conversations we were having at home at the time were really disturbing to me. My 15-year-old said, "Mom, why are you being so tough on Al Franken?" And I had to say, "Theo, you cannot grope a woman anywhere on her body without her consent. You cannot forcibly kiss a woman ever without her consent. And it's not okay for you, and it's not okay for Senator Franken." So if I chose to stay silent for the next allegation and the next allegation or whatever else might have come, I would not be a senator worth her salt who values women. I would not be a mother worth her salt who wants to teach my sons to respect women and value women. So I could not become silent. I couldn't stay silent. And I recognize it's sad for people, and I recognize there's some big donors out there that are angry. That's on them.
All right, Senator Gillibrand, we thank you for your time today.
Thank you
we'll
so
see you back
much.
here again soon.
Thank you.